Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Well, welcome everyone to the Chasing Giants podcast with Don Higgins. I'm Terry Peer. We're brought to you by OOG Gear, and as you can see, it's hunting season, so Don and I are together. We're recording this. I'm going to warn everybody, there's going to be a little echo in the room because I was the genius that pulled into Don's driveway today and realized I forgot my computer bag and all of my stuff to make the podcast with tonight. So we hope that you're all patient with us. There will be a little bit of echo. I'll try to do what I can in post-production to make it bearable. But, Don, what do you think, man?
Well, this is a first. We've recorded in here before, but usually we are a little more organized than tonight. So
usually we have our headsets on, so we have audio, but we're going to have to deal with what we have this week. But we just got done hunting. We got some stuff that we want to talk about tonight, and then some great questions that we're going to put up on the screen for everybody to read with us and answer. But let's start out. We just came out of the woods and had a really fun hunt. I mean, let's just call it like it is. We were debating whether I was even going to come up or not. South wind for all weekend. But tonight it was quartering just a little bit southeast, and we had a blast.
we got to go into one of my better stands because there was a little bit of east to that southerly wind, and what we seen 4 bucks, seen a really good up and comer. Got some good video footage, seen some does. I don't know how many deer we seen in all, but
I don't know.
It was a good hunt.
Yeah, we. The takeaway tonight, folks, is when you have Don Higgins filming for you, he was up over my left-hand shoulder. And the whole time, Don's filmed for me, I filmed for Don. We've been in a tree a lot together. But tonight was a little bit different because I was sitting there and it's so dry. All of the leaves, I mean, it sounds like a stampede of cattle when just squirrels are going down. But there was this weird noise that kept getting overshadowed by all the squirrels picking up the acorns, and it was his belly growling the entire time. The only thing I can compare it to is my grandmother's percolator when she used to brew coffee, and it was like bloop, 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 bloop. I promise I thought that before we were in the stand an hour I was going to have to get down and let him down the tree so he could go take a Code Brown. I thought it was going to happen.
No Code Browns, but man, my stomach was in turmoil. It was growling, there's no doubt about it. But we could hear the deer coming too, though. It was so quiet and everything's dry, like you said, that we heard those deer coming, before we even seen most of them. And those last bucks, I heard them over there rubbing on trees.
Yeah, we actually heard bucks that we couldn't see, and no doubt about it, they were rubbing on trees. And we talked at last week's podcast. You made the statement that you hadn't seen as many rubs. The good buck, the up and comer that he put on a show for us tonight. I mean, he demolished 3 or 4 trees. You had great footage of a scrape that he made. I mean, of course, I think he got within 17 yards of us, 16 yards, but he was probably at 21 when he made the scrape. I mean, phenomenal footage. If this ends up being a target buck for Don next year, this was the type of footage that you put in the hunt video. It was absolutely awesome.
Yeah, and we had a front row seat, less than 20 yards. That buck would have been dead if we'd have wanted to shoot him. Actually, all those bucks came within range except one buck right there at dark stayed out of range and kind of followed the creek, and he left the woodlot to head for a field kind of a different direction. But other than that one buck late, every other deer we seen we could have shot.
He was coming. He kind of went a different direction, and he went down in the creek for a little bit. So I don't know if he went down there to drink and then went out to go towards the field, just like you said, a different direction. But I looked up. Don's camera stand faces away from me, so he's watching one direction. But I think you were standing up at that point in time, and I said, big buck, and I grabbed my bow, and he couldn't see it at the time, and we were both trying to figure out, what buck it was, because we have bucks, on the farm that are on the do not shoot list, and then, the one that we're trying to get killed. And we just knew that it had a big frame, and it was a while before he worked his way up. He even rubbed behind some big oak trees before we knew what it was. But yeah, really, when you have a night like that, you come out of the stand kind of giddy, because that rut is close. I mean, these bucks were on their feet. The first buck we saw was probably an hour and 40 minutes before dark, and there's plenty of light, for all the other deer that we saw. But we are within just a couple weeks of things just being what we worked for the entire year.
Yeah, they're hitting scrapes hard. That the big buck we seen tonight, the bigger one, he made at least 2 scrapes, because once he got out to the field edge, he made another one. We heard bucks, at least 3 different bucks were rubbing. Those smaller bucks, I heard them over there too, be to your left. So they're getting on their feet before dark, and they're rubbing and scraping. You're right, it's about ready to turn on.
The bad news is, although the lows are going to be fairly cool at night, it's getting up to high 70s, I believe, maybe mid 70s. I can't remember what the weather forecast said, but the bad part of it is straight south winds for the next couple days. So if nothing else, we're going to get footage for the next couple days, but I'm going to be up all weekend hunting with Don and trying to get a target buck killed here before the rut. That's the goal anyway. So yeah,
I got a plan that we're gonna pull something out of our hat tomorrow.
Okay.
I haven't even shared with you, and we're gonna see what we can do about getting Terry a shot at a good buck.
When you all, that makes me scared, because when you all see the hunt video and you see the story of how he closed the deal on Zacchaeus in early October, there's not one person that's going to guess the storyline on this hunt. So when he says that, it really has me worried. I don't know, he might.
We're going to pull something very similar on this.
Well, but we're not going to hunt in the mornings, I can tell you that. I guarantee you that will not be on the docket for the next couple of days. I'm actually getting to eat lunch with Joe Johnson and Al Foster tomorrow, so I look forward to that. So
we haven't recorded since the youth hunt last weekend with my grandson, so give everybody an update on that. We talked about it we recorded right before that. So yeah, Walker and Corey, my son-in-law, were here last weekend to hunt youth season, and it's a 3-day season, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday, Columbus Day. So we hunted every morning, every evening, 6 hunts. We seen deer on 5 of the 6 hunts, but we only seen bucks on 1 hunt. It was just too warm. The first day on Saturday, it was in the mid 80s, and wow. It cooled off just a couple degrees each day, but we was wearing t-shirts in the blind, and we was opening windows in the blind to get a breeze blowing through. And but the great thing is, the first morning we went out, we're sitting there in the blind, and here comes a coyote. We was sitting by 2 pear trees, and I said, Corey didn't know if I wanted to shoot the coyote or not. I said, absolutely, let's shoot it. And so this coyote was sniffing around under these pear trees trying to find a pear to eat, and Walker pulled up and dropped him in his tracks. And literally probably 5-10 minutes later, look up, here comes another coyote, and he comes up there by the pear trees, and boom, Walker drops him in his tracks. And literally it wasn't 5 or 10 minutes later, here comes a third coyote. Boom, Walker drops that one. And then it literally was probably 30 minutes after that, there were some deer run by, and something had spooked those deer. And I knew it was a coyote, because I'd been getting pictures on my trail cam of this. They were all pups, from this year. And I'd been getting pictures on my trail camera of this group of coyotes chasing deer. And I knew that's what was going on with these deer. There was no other reason for those deer to be spooked. They had their tails flared and everything. And here comes the 4th coyote, but he seen us move in the blind or something before he came up and stopped, so we didn't get a shot at the
that, and there's 3 dead ones laying in the field already.
That probably didn't help either. But so Walker was 3 for 3 on coyotes on the opening morning of youth season. So got a great picture of it. I'll we'll share that picture when you produce the podcast.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, it's youth season. There was youth season in Kentucky, youth season in Illinois. I don't know about any other state. Our friend Patrick Simpson brought his son Bryson up, and Bryson actually got a buck on Saturday night. And Patrick I didn't even tell you this. Patrick actually got that on video, so we might even see that hunt at some point on Chasing Giants TV. Patrick was filming for Bryson that night, so. Quite a few of our friends, we saw them post pictures of kids getting it, so I just think it's cool. The ironic thing is, this is going a little bit on a side direction on this. I'm more confused about social media than I've ever been. We posted a video, a reel, on the Real World or Facebook, and I don't know what happened. And our following is pretty good, but in 2 days, I checked from the tree stand tonight, there's like 2.4 million views on this video. I don't want to exaggerate. Hang on, this is rude me doing this on the podcast, but I gotta do this so we get, at the time of this recording, 2.2 million views, 19,000 likes.
Wow.
This video's had, and the video was actually, well, why don't you tell the story?
Well, the video is from a real world customer, just showing how they've used our products, the Miscanthus and the various other food plot seed blends, and it was taken during youth season of his son going in to hunt, walking down the row of Miscanthus and slipping through a tunnel to get into the blind, and then once they're up in the blind, they're looking out over these various food plots. And David Myers is the customer that sent it to me, and it was such a good video, just showing everything. But that little kid walking in kind of made it, and I would have never guessed that it had anything like that.
I've never. It's the most viral video or piece of marketing collateral we have ever posted on any platform we have. The unfortunate thing is people are just stupid. There was people criticizing how he was carrying the gun. There's people criticizing that's not hunting. You need to be sitting on a cold rock off a cliff of a mountain. And if you're criticizing a kid for going out with his dad during hunting season, you got issues, people. That's all I got to say. You need something else to do with your time. I bet I've deleted over 100 comments, even as far as people calling people names in it. It's ridiculous.
Well, the big thing is probably that Miscanthus. Anything that we post about Miscanthus, they want to call it invasive.
Yeah.
And these tree hugger groups get a hold of it, and one of them sees it, they post it to their group, and then they all come to our page. I've had it happen on my page.
Yeah.
And they just attack, and they don't even know what they're talking about because it's absolutely not invasive.
There was a lot of anti-hunters commenting on it, so
yeah,
it's not like 2.2 million potential customers of Miscanthus watched that video, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I have an idea that I'm going to make on our Chasing Giants TV after the season's over.
Yeah.
I got a video I'm going to make about Miscanthus being invasive. It's going to be a good one. So let's take a quick break, and before we go to the Ossia, there is an unbelievable sale going on right now, pre-rut, for their rut sale at Osseo, and depending on how much you spend, it is a flat rate that comes off of it, and I'm talking big dollars. So if you're looking for gear, whether it's like the Sherpa, that's my favorite of all of the line. It's their mid-weight. It's got the Sherpa lining on the inside. I wear it most of the year after it turns cold. Anything they got, if you're looking for stuff to finish out the season or possibly a Christmas present, you're going to save more money on this sale than any other time during the year. So go to OsseoGear.com. Make sure you check that out, and we'll be right back with some more.
You don't even need a code.
No code. It calculates in your cart. So
automatic.
Put it in there. We'll be right back.
Osseo Gear introduces a premium line of bow hunting gear that is unmatched, pairing nature's finest camouflage with the best technological innovations. Osseo Gear brings whitetail bow hunters the gear they need to be the best at their craft. The unique camouflage mimics the intricate feather pattern of North America's greatest predatorial creatures. Designed for invisibility, built for comfort, and engineered for function. Visit AsioGear.com. That's ASIO Gear.com to start shopping. Asio Gear. Prepare to be invisible.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Don, the other thing that you did this week is you are still on the quest for doe patrol. So talk a little bit about that. How many does are you planning on killing? I saw they harvested the corn that kind of, you said, got demolished. Hope the neighbor farmers are happy you're whacking and stacking some does.
Well, I'm sure they're going to be happy because some of those fields had some serious damage, and I totally understand them being upset about it, but I'm going to do my part to correct the situation. I shot another doe this week. That's 2 so far. I literally would like to shoot 12 to 15 because every time I've hunted, in the evening, if I'm in a stand where I can see, like tonight, I could see out across that field. Now, I was watching deer coming from everywhere that we would have set. We would have seen deer. It wouldn't matter which stand we'd have picked. Now, the wind obviously wasn't right for all of them, but there's just, and I never ever thought I would say this, but I've got too many deer, and I'm gonna do something about it.
He's had me get one extra antlerless tag for Illinois this year. So between all of us, his grandsons, his family, we'll be putting some meat in the freezer for sure. I got an announcement that it's something we never thought that we would have really done on this podcast. And for those people that know where you have partnered with Briton Firearms, you've known Nick Carpenter for a long time. And they make a platform of hunting rifle off of an AR that ranges from all kinds of calibers. But what it's really gotten very popular for is all the straight wall cartridges for the different states that require straight wall. So, we worked with them, want to help them out. Great guys, great company. Again, we try to help our friends out and use this podcast platform. We decided to do something a little bit different because we know so many of our listeners also gun hunt, and gun hunting is a great way for, like you are going to do with controlling your does or even chasing your target buck. We're actually going to create an additional episode in the coming weeks. So we're going to still do our weekly show as normal, but we're going to film another episode with Briton just on firearms. And the thing that I'm most excited about this is the gun manufacturer is going to talk about all these different calibers that are becoming very popular, all the way from 22 ARC with the guys that are doing coyote patrol to, I'm sorry, not 22 ARC, what's the new 22 round? It left my brain for a second, but then this new 6mm ARC that's becoming very popular, up to the new 400 that just came out. So I'm really excited to have people on that know a lot more than us to talk about all these calibers, because I just want to learn. I love firearms. I have let's just say 1 or 2. We'll just leave it at that. We don't want to admit to anything, but love firearms. It's been part of my family for many years. But they're also going to. We were talking the other day, strategizing about our bullet points. They're also going to talk about triggers. And I think most people that are novice don't understand what type and what poundage of trigger based on the type of hunting or shooting that they want to do. And they're going to spend a lot of time talking about the relationship with different types and poundage of triggers based on what you're trying to do. And then also talk a little bit about what they got cooking. They're going to be at the Midwest Sportsman's Classic, sponsored by FAE at Shipshewana. Going to be in the Chasing Giants aisle, so they're going to talk about where you can come find them this year. But we're going to be recording that episode here in the next week, and then we will air it. We're gonna make everybody known. The only thing that this might cause a little bit of confusion to is those folks listening on the call-in services like MTech. There will be an additional episode probably uploaded like on a Wednesday or a Thursday. So we'll make sure we give you notice that you need to make sure you listen to the normal Chasing Giants episode early in the week, because there'll be one coming in right behind it, because we're not going to skip a normal week of our show. This is going to be kind of a special edition for gun hunters. and hopefully give everybody some tools of some stuff with firearms. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, awesome.
I don't think the lovely state of Illinois is making it too friendly for people who want this style of rifle, but oh well, can't change that.
Well, communism. Hopefully we're going to put an end to communism here on November 5th. So
Yeah,
we'll
it's coming up too. That's the only reason I need to travel back to Kentucky during the rut is to make sure I get to vote.
Yeah.
So we'll make a run back. I'll be like that homecoming buck, right?
Yeah.
So I'll be in my rut pattern, and then have to run back home and vote, and then come right back. So you got anything else before?
I'm ready for questions. I got a list of questions here.
All right, let's get the first one going here.
The first one comes from Austin Eufkes. I hope I said your name right, Austin, from Carthage, Illinois. And he says, Don and Terry, I received an email from the Illinois Farm Bureau yesterday seeking information regarding deer damage to agricultural crops. They are linked up with the Illinois DNR and seeking specific examples as they evaluate the situation and potential solution. The email goes on to say, if you are aware of any farmers that have encountered deer damage to their crops and would be willing to share information, for example, location, number of acres damaged, yield reduction, etc., please contact them. The Illinois Farm Bureau is to compile any complaints brought forth to them and send all the data off to the Illinois DNR. As a crop consultant, farmer, and deer hunter myself, I do see and hear of many examples of wildlife damage to crops. Yes, deer are hard on corn and soybeans in my area, but raccoons are just as bad, if not worse, on the corn around this part of west central Illinois. I'm asking for your guys' input on direction for me and all other Illinois farmers to report back to this or ignore it, because to me this again shows that the state is bound and determined to create more nuisance harvest tags. Why aren't they doing anything about the raccoon populations that are booming? Don, congratulations on Zacchaeus. Once again, impressing us all, calling your shot. I appreciate yourself and Terry's openness, honesty, and willingness to share the greatness of our Lord and Savior. Well, Austin, not a big fan of the Illinois Farm Bureau, as you might imagine. The Illinois Farm Bureau has stuck their nose in deer management issues for the last probably 25, 30 years. They are largely responsible for, to back up a little bit, the Illinois Farm Bureau is also affiliated with Country Companies Insurance. And so we know the insurance lobby doesn't want deer because of increased deer vehicle collisions they've got to pay for. But they look for any angle to encourage IDNR to kill more deer. They've done it for years. They were big on the whole outfitter thing. There were some outfitters who apparently were members of the Farm Bureau. Now, I've been told, at least at one point a few years back, when I was involved with trying to change some things and make it better for the Illinois deer hunters, that the Illinois Farm Bureau is the most powerful lobby in the state of Illinois, a lobby group. So, when they talk, the politicians listen because they've got the money to grease the skids, and that's bad news for deer hunters. What can you do? I don't know if there's anything you can do because for every farmer that says the problem is raccoons and not deer, there's going to be 10 others that say kill all the deer. And it's come down in this state to private landowners taking the bull by the horns and trying to manage the deer on their properties. And to be honest, the only reason Illinois has mature bucks left is not because of the state of Illinois and the IDNR, it's in spite of them. And I've said it before, we can't blame it all on IDNR because their hands get somehow tied by politicians on various issues. And what I'm guessing is going to happen here is the Illinois Farm Bureau is going to gather some data, they're going to share it with IDNR, and then they're going to go to the politicians who really make the decisions, and they're going to slip some money under the table to the key politicians and say, we want more deer killed. And you can just about bet that you're going to see it. And I was just talking earlier about I need to shoot more deer. Well, as deer hunters, and especially deer hunters that own land, if you've taken it upon yourself to manage the deer herd on a property, that includes keeping the population under control. If we don't, Mother Nature will. Mother Nature don't, the IDNR will. So there's a responsibility on our part as well. I think I think we need more emphasis on doe harvest in this state, to be honest. I was on another podcast earlier today, and they asked me what I would do if I was in charge of the IDNR, and one idea I had, I don't know if this will ever gain traction, but it probably won't if IDNR knows it's my idea, to be honest. But right now we're allowed 2 bucks, and you can shoot 2 bucks opening day of season. And we've got too many hunters, in my opinion, that are focused only on bucks. They'll never shoot a doe. They'll kill 2 bucks every year but never shoot a doe. What I would like to see the state do is split that buck season, or split the whole deer hunting season into an early season and a late season. You can still kill 2 bucks, but you can only kill 1 in each season. So you can kill 1 early and 1 late. If you do not kill 1 early, that does not mean you kill 2 late. You can still only kill 1 in each season. So early season would start October 1, and it would run through the first gun season. And if you shot a buck early with your bow, you don't shoot one during that first gun season. That's still part of the early season. Then the late season would start right after the close of that first shotgun season. It would run, till mid-January when bow season goes out. But to take it to the next level, before a hunter gets to shoot that second buck in the late season, he has to tag and turn in a doe. And that way, even a guy that shoots 2 bucks, he's shot also at least 1 doe in the process as well. Part of this problem we've got is the sex ratios have become skewed in some areas, because we got guys that are shooting bucks only, and there's no pressure on that doe herd. And I think by splitting this buck season and requiring a hunter to shoot a doe before the second, I think it's going to do 2 things. It's going to pull back on the buck harvest, and it's going to increase the doe harvest, which is going to affect the population. There'll be less does out there reproducing. That's the proposal that I put forth, and I would think that the Illinois Farm Bureau would get on board with what I'm doing, because the Farm Bureau, there's some farmers who have become outfitters, or they're leasing their ground or whatever. They see the value in the deer herd as well. They're making income not only from their crops, but for leasing hunting ground, or outfitting hunters or whatever. I think it's a proposal that actually benefits everybody. It's going to help with population control, but it's also going to help with age structure, and it's also going to help with sex ratios, the buck to doe ratio. So I know DNR won't do it because it's my idea. I promoted it on another podcast earlier today. Like I said, I'm throwing it out there. Farm Bureau, if you're listening, there's you an idea to help everybody.
The problem that I see, or I shouldn't say it's a problem, but a concern that I have about these blanket surveys that says, farmers, tell us if you have crop damage. We just talked about, just outside of your bedding on one side of your farm, was some crop damage on a small tract or section of a crop field right that butts up against the bedding, big open ag area, but yeah, there was crop damage. And if somebody called and said, yeah, there's all this crop damage, but yet you go to the property that I have 30 minutes drive from here, we lost at minimum 75% of the deer to EHD. I talked about it on the podcast for the last month, how I was concerned that we've lost so many deer. And those pockets, it's really spotty. It's not like 2012 where it was just most of the eastern half of the state. So my biggest concern is there's going to be areas where it's going to even take harder time to rebound if all of a sudden this is going on at the same time, because the crop damage is going to be just as spotty as the EHD, and nobody's going to talk the two together. There's not going to be any data point that overlaps and sees where we need it or not.
Yeah, the challenge for DNR is it's a moving target. What I need here is totally different than what you need 30 minutes away, and you don't even have to go 30 minutes away. And the reason the deer are here is because of what I've done. It's, you know, I've given them a sanctuary and I've protected them, and I feed them all winter. So that herd, and you know, we've had mild winters. There's no stress on the herd, or hasn't been. Fortunately, I didn't have EHD either. EHD could have come through this summer, and I don't need to shoot any does whatsoever. But it's a moving target. It's kind of hard to, you know, address.
Yeah. Well, before we go to the next question, I want to thank everybody who's helped with the hurricane relief project with Lester's Feet. We got a lot of donations that came in that are currently being deposited and pooled. We've already sent the first check down to get that project started in East Tennessee. If you want to still contribute to that, or looking for a way to help with the hurricane relief in North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, and you're just not sure, we're connecting with churches, the Mountain City Church of Christ in Mountain City, Tennessee. Every single dollar that if you want to donate will go to help a family. And our senior minister has done a lot of communication with them down there. One of the biggest things now is with power still being out, getting dehumidifiers, fans, running water with wells. So there's all kinds of different things that it's just going to take years for it to come back. But a lot of these houses, if mildew sets in, you know, they have a chance to save it if we react quick. So getting in there and helping these families, if you're interested in doing that, you can mail a check to Lester's Feet Foundation at P.O. Box 250, Dry Ridge, Kentucky 41035, and in the memo line just earmark that for disaster relief. Now I will say, beyond that, thank you for those who just continue to support Lester's Feet. We had a very heartwarming week with being able to help a lot of families. I think we are around $20,000 of bills that we paid for families just this last week. So it's pretty special that we're still this far along. People are still giving, and we're still sending that money out. So let's go to the second question.
Next one comes from our buddy Alan Miller from Dundee, Ohio, and this is for both of us. It says, "Hi Don and Terry, thank you both for the time and knowledge you invest into the podcast. My question is for both of you. If you could go back in your 20s, what is the best piece of advice you would give to your younger self in deer hunting and in life? Thanks for considering my questions, and best of luck the rest of the season." You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Wow. Usually I get to see the questions before we start, so we're kind of winging this tonight. So,
well, I got an answer.
All right, go ahead.
If I was to advise my younger 20-something self, I would absolutely say buy land. buy all the land you can afford, even if you can only afford to buy a little 5-acre tract. Buy land. Land appreciates. It's the best, in my opinion, it's the best investment there is. You can invest in the stock market, and the stock market crashes and you lose it all. You buy 5 acres, 10 acres, 1,000 acres, it doesn't matter what happens to the economy of the world, you still own 5 acres, 10 acres, or 1,000 acres. I wish that I was smart enough when I was young to have invested every penny I could possibly scrape up into real estate.
So non-hunting related, when I got out of college all the way up till when I went to grad school, my professional career was completely focused on how I could climb the corporate ladder as fast as I could. And I didn't do anything unethical or immoral, but I was looking out for me. And if I could tell my younger self something, it was not until I started trying to put others before me and true servant leadership. That's when my career actually took off. I think there was a lot of factors in that, but I think when I started putting others before myself with my career and my job, that's when my career started flourishing. My relationship with coworkers became better. I guess that would be very early. I was like every other college kid that just wanted to make money as fast as I could. Mm-hmm. I hid behind the fact that I was doing it for my family, but in all reality, I was just a young, eager business person that wanted to make money. And The older I got, I figured out that you put others first, and that's how you really start becoming blessed, whether it's with money or not. But what about hunting?
Well, we've seen that. I mean, with real world, you know, we went through a change a few years ago, and we talked the talk before, and we did to a certain degree, but man, when we got our priorities in order, business exploded. But as far as deer hunting, I think it goes right back to land ownership.
Oh yeah.
You know, when you own land and you can manage the land and you can work on the habitat, your deer hunting opportunities are going to be better. So that land ownership kind of covers, you know, financially as well as on the hunting side.
I guess my answer ties back to why I'm so passionate about what we're doing at the Midwest Sportsman's Classic with the Wenzel brothers, Al Foster, Bobby Worthington. Not that you and Joe aren't a big part of it, but when I started hunting, I didn't start hunting till I was a late teenager, young adult, and my first exposure to areas you could learn how to hunt were the people that were pioneering the entertainment side of, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not blaming somebody for how they built their business, but you know, the Jordans and Realtree, you know, Monster Buck series came out, you know, Realtree Road Trips was just starting, Roger Ragland, I guess it was Bill Jordan and Roger were the first that were really starting to produce DVDs or VHS tapes even before that. I wish that I would have got connected with like the Wenzel brothers and Bobby, even though I liked some of that other entertainment style stuff. I mean, that was fine, but it was like I wish I would have started with the fundamentals, not the entertainment side of hunting. I think it would have shaved a lot of years off of me if I was reading the articles that Al Foster gave me a few years ago that were hard copies, instead of watching a TV show of somebody sitting in a pen, you know, shooting a 220-inch buck from the ground at 8 yards. I just, you know, you get caught up, you don't know what you don't know. And if I would have started studying the right stuff and not got distracted with what I was watching, I probably would have, my trophy room would look a little different. I would have got up to speed a whole lot faster. But
well, I was blessed to meet Al. You know, I think God brings certain people into your life at certain times for a certain reason, and I think Al Foster was one of them guys that came into my life when I needed it. Saved me a lot of years on the learning curve.
And trust me, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not bashing monster bucks or road trips. All of those people have built a business and found a niche, just like we've found a niche. It's just you find a gap in a community or an industry, you fill that with a product. And
all right, next question comes from Garrett Minihan from Silver Lake, Kansas, and he says, "Hey Don, I'm a new listener to the podcast as of this summer, but I've been following your content for a couple of years. Great content, and I love the strong faith you guys put forth and spread. I'm from northeast Kansas. I have the chance at a buck of a lifetime this year. Me and my neighbors think he has to be about 210 inches. He was around this summer and disappeared at dispersal. It's been over a month since we've last seen anything of him. He's also the only mature buck we know of around us. How often do mature bucks come back to their summer range to check does? Is there anything I can do to attempt to keep him around if and when he comes back? Or is there another way you think I can seal the deal? My neighbor does a ton of habitat management, mostly things you promote, so I believe he should already have a good reason to stick around. I have also been a lot smarter this year, as I haven't sat once as he hasn't been around in season, to keep down on intrusion and not burn out my blind. Thank you for your time, God bless, and congratulations on harvesting Zacchaeus." Well, Garrett, you know, there is a chance your buck could come back. I wrote an article several years ago for North American Whitetail called Homecoming Bucks. And in it, I detailed something I've seen with some mature bucks where they come back to where they summered. And so what happens is, you know, those bucks spend their summer in a bachelor group. When they shed velvet, after they shed velvet, around, you know, early fall, that bachelor group breaks up and those bucks will disperse out to their fall range. And what happens is, as we get closer to the rut, those bucks are building up to a fever pitch, wanting to find that first hot doe. And you can mark this on your calendar. It's 24 hours either side of November 7th. So it's either November 6th, 7th, or 8th. Always. Every time I've noticed, it's always been 6th, 7th, or 8th. Sometimes those bucks will run back to their summer range. And what I think happens is they're in that fall range, they're looking for that hot doe, and they can't find a hot doe, and they're getting desperate. So they run back to an area that they're very familiar with where they summered, and they look for a hot doe there. And the thing of it is, when they come back, they're not there very long. It's like one day at the most. Sometimes they'll come back at night and make the journey right back to their fall range the same night. I don't think there's anything you can possibly do when a buck has a separate summer range and a different fall range. I don't think there's anything you can do to keep him at one spot or the other. For whatever reason, it's just ingrained in him that I'm going to spend my summers here, I'm going to spend my falls there, and it doesn't matter what you do to your habitat or anything like that. I don't think there's anything you can do to change that, and I base that on an experience of different bucks I've watched over the years. One buck in particular that comes to mind, he would summer on a small piece of private ground. And this is a buck I wanted to kill. I mean, he was up in the 180s, and I think he was 7.5, 8.5 years old before he died. But he ended up getting shot by a guy, and I know a friend of mine, on public land. So during season, so I was looking for that buck. I knew his summer range. That's where I got his picture every summer, but I couldn't figure out where he went in the fall, and I was moving trail cameras and things trying to figure out where he went in the fall, but I never thought to go look on the public land. I thought there's no way that buck's going to go spend all his time on public land where the hunting pressure's so much worse. But that's exactly where he got shot at. But that buck did run back to his summer range, and every time he did, it was that November 6th, 7th, and 8th time period. But he was never there more than one day. Sometimes I'd get his picture in the morning and that same afternoon, but that was it. Never again on the property during the entire rut. The other time it might happen is late in the rut, around Thanksgiving, that last few days of November, first day or two of December, the rut's winding down. That buck's been in his fall range. He's been breeding does, right and left as they come in heat. The rut's winding down. He's having a hard time finding that next hot doe. During the peak of the rut, he leaves one doe and he's going right to the next one, then he's going right to the next one. But as the rut winds down, he's got more downtime in between each hot doe, and again he gets desperate, so he runs back to his summer range to look for that doe. That is not one you can mark on the calendar. That's kind of a broader window there of when that could happen. But that first one, November 6th, 7th, and 8th. So my advice to you is be in your stand all day long, November 6th, 7th, and 8th. He may come back, he may not, but that is your best chance from my experience.
If you're trying to do something to change the pattern, would it be fair to say that's going to be late season food? And when everything around it gets picked or nobody has anything else, you might be able to draw a deer that's not normally there in the northeast Kansas is going to get bitter cold. Mm-hmm. So that's really the only thing maybe he could do differently, that if the deer's not there, hopefully he's still alive and he could have a food source.
I've never seen that work in my experience. I suppose it makes sense when times get scarce. I have more strange bucks show up on my property in the late season than I ever do in the rut. It starts after the rut, early December. The worse the weather gets, the more strange bucks that show up for the food. But these are not bucks that summered here. I don't know where they're coming from, but that's worth a try. Yeah. What else can you do?
So the problem with the homecoming buck, or especially the second trip back, why it might be so inconsistent, is they might run into a hot doe between point A and point B that they just never make it there.
Yep.
You never know.
Yep.
All right, before the next question, let's take a quick break and listen to our friends from Midwest Land Group, and we'll be right back.
Ever had a terrible real estate experience? Average realtors usually spend more time selling themselves than on selling your land. They'll tell you anything to get the listing. They know that if they get the listing, you're stuck with them. Not here. Midwest Land Group has changed the way land is sold and is the only brokerage to offer a 100% satisfaction guarantee. That means if we don't meet your expectations, you can fire us. That puts all the pressure on us to perform. We don't just list land, we sell it. If you're looking to buy or sell property, don't before you talk to us. Visit us at MidwestLandGroup.com.
Okay, Don, let's hear the next question.
The next one comes from Mark Keller from Pequot, Kansas. Says, you say do not hunt October mornings because your target buck is already back to his bed before shooting light. Wouldn't the mornings be a perfect time to harvest does on your property this time of season, or should you wait until your target buck is harvested or late season to harvest does? Great podcast. Thanks for sharing your experience and knowledge with the bow hunting community. I started watching your podcast and videos and it has gotten me back to bow hunting after 15 years. Well, Mark, that's a great point. I mean, October mornings would be a good spot or a good time to shoot does. The bigger issue, I think, is the location where you shoot those does. I mean, the last thing you want to do is be hunting or shooting does right close to where you expect your buck to be bedded, and then you're stomping around, tracking does, getting them out, whatever. I think it's a great time, but I think location of where you shoot those does is more important than the time of the day.
And you don't want to depending on getting in and out of your stand, having all those deer maybe out on a food plot, you got to have good access to get in. You don't want to blow everything out and cause a bunch of intrusion. But yeah, it's anytime you can kill a doe. I think you kill a doe if you want to. It's just where you're killing them on your farm.
Right. Next one comes from Matthew Montag from Goshen, Ohio. Says, hey Don, this question is for you. You recently said on a podcast that there are many, many miles between 170-inch bucks. That was interesting, and it's had me wondering what that number actually is. My question is, could you give us an idea of roughly how many miles are between 170-inch bucks in a state like Illinois, Iowa, or my state of Ohio? Thanks again for your valuable info, and God bless. Well, Matthew, that's definitely a out-of-the-box question there that I don't have an answer for, but I thought it was worth discussing because I think it varies so much that there's really no way to put an answer to that. Around here in my area, I've got 170-inch bucks on my farm, and I've got trail cameras scattered from a wide area in every direction around my farm. I don't know of another 170-inch buck. Well, the closest one would be the one that EHD got, and that's 20 miles.
30 minutes drive, so 20 miles the way the bird flies.
Yeah, so we're talking 20 miles, the closest one I know of. Now, I'm guessing there's probably some maybe closer in other directions, but you're looking at several miles, and when you consider, the circumference or whatever you want to call it, maybe we should talk about acres. I mean, how many acres does it take to produce a 170-inch buck in Illinois under the current conditions? And here in central Illinois, it's many, many, many thousands of acres for every 170-inch buck. But you get in other areas, where maybe there's some sanctuaries where bucks can live older, and that's the big key. That's why we don't have as many as we used to, is because we don't have as many old bucks as we used to. Only a certain percentage of bucks are ever going to hit 170 anyway, and the fewer older age class bucks you have, obviously the fewer 170-inch bucks you're going to have. But it's a lot of miles, a lot more than it used to be. And my friend Al Foster had a saying, and I haven't heard it from him in a long time, but he would say, even where there's a lot of big bucks, there's not very many. So think about that. Even when there's a lot of them, there's not very many.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yep.
All right.
The last one comes from Logan Ruckel from Luxembourg, Wisconsin. It says, Don and Terry, first of all, thank you for the podcast every week. I've learned so much over the past few years listening to you both. Don, this question may be more for you as it entails public land hunting. I'm wondering how you hunt public land or how you have success. I hunt in northeast Wisconsin, where just about every square foot of public is hunted, and some of the other hunters on this land are not very respectful to others. To avoid other hunters, I have to go deep into incredibly thick swamps, which doesn't allow for foolproof access. I'm just curious how you hunt around other hunters and have success with good access on public. Any guidance would be appreciated. Thank you both for your wisdom and desire to help individuals like myself. Well, Logan, I do not hunt public land very successfully. I'll put it that way. Right now, I've got trail cameras on 2 different tracts of public land. I would love to shoot a giant on public land, but my problem is I can't find a giant on public land. I'm always looking. I spend time hunting on public land every year. Just usually it's a situation like this year. I've shot my target buck early. I still got a buck tag. I don't have another target buck on my farm or any of the other private properties I have permission to hunt. So what do I got to lose? You know, last year I was in the same boat. I shot Babe in October, so the rut rolls around. I don't have another target buck. I went and spent a full day sitting on public land. Didn't see a single deer. So I'm probably not the best guy to be asked. Now I think if I was a public land hunter strictly and I was putting my time in and that's where I dedicated all my efforts, I think I could kill a decent buck on public land every year. Decent, I'm talking 140 inch or better. To kill the kind of bucks that I'm looking to kill, I would love to shoot a 200 on public. I talked last episode about I had one spotted, but I was going to have to step on a young man's toes to hunt it. I was not going to do that. I'm going to keep looking, I'll put it that way. But you got to get away from the other hunters, as you talked about. I've got 2 spots picked out. I actually got 2 stands hung right now on public land, 2 different tracks, many miles apart. They're not even in the same county. And I've got cameras fairly close to those stands. If a good buck shows up on either one of them, I'll be all over it come November. I'll probably spend several days hunting there in November. But the key, like you said, a lot of times is access. You know, sometimes it's easy access that everybody else overlooks. Sometimes the giant is right off the side of the road because everybody's going too deep and they're going past them. Other times it's a real struggle to get to where you need to be, as you talked about, going way back in through swamps and such, going farther than anybody else goes. But you got to get away from the people. A mature buck is going to do the same thing. He doesn't want to be around people. Sometimes he'll lay close to the road and let them walk right on by, and sometimes he goes deep. But you got to get away from the people.
I'm not hunting public, so I tip my hat to the guys that do, and especially the guys that are successful with it. There's guys that are just ate up with the challenge of it and being able to you know, put that variable in place. We talk about it. We like the habitat side of it more than sometimes we do hunting. So I mean, it's nothing wrong with either one of them. But the guys that deal with the public side of it, man, you guys do I don't know, patience. I just don't have patience. If I was sitting in a stand and somebody come walking underneath of me, I couldn't. It's just not my thing.
Well, that's only part of it. You know, you've got. You leave it. You can't leave a stand on a lot of public.
Right.
I was just looking at a place this week, another totally different piece of public, and I was reading the rules, and you can't leave a stand. So you got to
get into saddle hunting in that track.
That's not happening. No. You know, I'm the guy that I want to have my stand ready. I want to do my scouting in the winter time. right after season. I want to get my stands prepared before spring green up, and I want to leave them there. And I don't want to come back until the day I hunt. And when I do come back, I want to know the stand's still there. I want to be able to put out trail cameras without them getting stolen, which not happens on private.
It's funny how divided the hunting community gets about everybody has a style or what they like to do, and anybody who does it differently, they're wrong. It amazes me. We saw it in that reel that we posted of that little boy with the miscanthus. It's, you know, whether you're using a longbow or a spear or a gun. I've never seen, and it's not just the hunting community, I've never seen our country to where people just like to argue for the sake of arguing about something. It is absolutely baffling how if you don't do it somebody's way, the world's coming to an end and you're doing it wrong. The hunting industry is horrible right now with this.
Well, it's all society. Social media is, I think, the culprit. You know, anybody can have a YouTube channel on social media and start their own blog or their own video series or whatever, and their own podcast, and say whatever they want about anybody else. It doesn't even have to be true. They can make things up about people, and there's no consequences. They go back to their basement or whatever, and so be it.
Well, we've definitely learned a lot through our journey. I think we're almost 250 episodes in, and right at 2 million individual people or IP addresses have downloaded this podcast since the beginning of it. And we've definitely matured, and we've gotten caught up in every once in a while making a comment, either poking fun or saying something about others. But as time goes on, no matter how much the stuff comes at us, I mean, we had a tough week this week. I mean, it was no doubt about it with how we believe Satan works with when we start making strides for the kingdom, how he starts tearing down. But when you have a tough week like we did and see how much chaos people can cause inside the hunting community, it's really frustrating. If I was ever going to shut down social media and just give it all up, this week would have been the week I would have done it. But then I think about how much money we were able to send out with Lester's feed, or then we think about the guys that we've been able to witness to about Jesus or been baptized, and you guys that are sticking with us and supporting us. That's why we're still doing it. And we're not perfect. We've gotten caught up in it ourselves now and then, but we try to be better every day. That's all we can do.
Amen. We're sinners just like everyone else.
I do want to make a couple comments. Like I said, forgive us for how echoey it is in here. We forgot the soundboard and all the headphones with how we're kind of winging this week's podcast. But I do want to make a comment. There's been some questions lately on the videos and audio quality. Just want to let everybody know there is some software out that uses AI that I've tried running our podcast file through. And what it does is it goes through, and I'm really bad. Don's not near as bad. Every once in a while he says it, but I'm really bad about So as I'm thinking about what I'm trying to say, I'll in mid-sentence. And this AI will actually go in and look for those words and edit them out. Or if we have a pause, like tonight, you're all going to see a lot of awkward pauses where we're just not that good at this. And we look at each other and say, are you talking or am I talking? And there's like a 3-second pause. For me to go in and edit that out takes hours upon hours. And I've been experimenting with this software that goes through in about 45 seconds and takes those pauses and those or words out. So if you've heard a little bit of choppiness in between phrases, or when we talk, our sentences are really, really close together. I'm experimenting with that still, and I hope you all understand. It's just a matter of saving a little bit of time as we go through it. I don't have all the settings. Probably won't hear too much of that tonight because we won't be running it through that software. But for those of you who are wondering, I think somebody said that we were editing out a bunch of stuff that we didn't say. We don't edit anything out. We kind of go as we go. But if you're hearing that, if you've heard that choppiness in the last probably 3 or 4 episodes, that's why. So outside of that, make sure you stay tuned. We've gotten a lot of positive comments from those who listen to the Sunday night prayer time at the conclusion of the podcast. You can also forward that video alone. It's published just as its own video at 7 o'clock on Sunday nights on the Chasing Giants YouTube channel. And I'm really excited about Chasing Giants TV. It's kind of taken a world of its own. See, there was another See, that software would have taken that out if I would have ran it through it. But as we get into hunting season, we just released a video every Friday. Don and Joe are doing a longer video that talks about what they're seeing in the deer woods that week and what they're previewing for the next week. And we're trying right now to figure out how to merge Don's rut report into this also, but we're trying to deal with some logistics and how that's going to work. But if you're wanting up-to-date information from people all around the country, there's 14 of us in I don't know how many different states. There's going to be constant information that's coming and going to give you guys information of what's going on in the field. So I hope you're following all the social media channels, Chasing Giants _TV, or the Chasing Giants YouTube channel to catch it all there.
All right. God bless everyone. See you next week.
Stay tuned for Daryl Monk with this week's Sunday Night Prayer Time.
Hi, I'm Daryl Monk with Wise Eye. I'd like to share a word with you all about one man in particular in the Bible that we probably all could relate to. I know I certainly can. His name is Peter. Old Peter. Haven't we all been a Peter at one time or another in our life? Peter, as everybody knows, Peter denied Christ 3 times. Why did Peter deny Christ 3 times? Have you ever denied Christ 3 times? At least one time? I know I have. What causes us to do that? Is it our sinful nature? I mean, when Jesus told Peter that Peter, that you will deny me tonight before the rooster crows 3 times. Peter didn't want to believe that. And sure enough, we all know the story. We all know what happens. When it came down to it, he denied Christ 3 times. Was he embarrassed to admit that he knew Jesus? Was he scared, fearful for his life? Possibly. But I ask today, what are you going to do with that? When it comes down to professing your faith and when you are asked. So what did happen to Peter? Was Peter not fully engaged in Christ? Was Peter not fully, has really accepted Jesus and was fully all in? After that moment, before Jesus, the transfiguration, he took the disciples and had breakfast. And he asked Peter, right after breakfast, Peter, Simon, Peter, do you love me? Peter asked, you know I love you. Feed my lambs. Jesus asked him again, Peter, do you love me? Of course, Peter again told him, yes, Lord, you know I love you. And then Jesus asked him a 3rd time, Peter, do you love me? Peter was getting a little agitated at this point, and he's like, Jesus, you know everything. You know I love you. Jesus told him, feed my sheep. And I think it was at that moment that Peter understood what exactly Jesus meant by feeding the sheep and spreading the word and shepherding the sheep. Now, after Jesus left, Peter started preaching the word, saving souls, converting Jews, and just spreading the gospel. Spreading the gospel. He was preaching one day and saving people, and the high priest, they heard about it. They approached Peter on the day that they arrested him and said, by what authority do you have to be saying these things to these people? So right here, Peter had another opportunity on how to answer that question. So did Peter pass the test this time? Absolutely. Peter looked at them and said, filled with the Spirit, the Bible says in Acts chapter 4, filled with the Spirit, let it be known to all of you, people of Israel, that by the name of Jesus Christ, whom you crucified, and whom God raised from the dead, gave me this authority. So when Peter was asked and was tested again, he passed the test. Can you pass the test? Do you have the Spirit of God in you to where you can pass the test? If you were asked that question today, sharing your faith, proclaim it, filled with the Spirit, as the Bible says, and proclaim that Jesus Christ is Lord of all, and share the gospel, the good news, with others. Thank you for listening. I'm going to pray now for all of us, that when the testing time comes, that you too can pass the test when we're tested with the question of our belief. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, just thank you for the opportunity to just look at your word and learn from your disciples, Lord, that there were just people just like us, sinners just like us. And I'm just thankful for the example that you were to Peter and that you were to us. I pray for the boldness of Peter, that we and myself can be filled with your Spirit and filled with your knowledge to spread the gospel and not be ashamed. Thank you, Father, for your love. Thank you for loving us. We're not worthy, but we're so thankful for your grace and mercy. I ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.